The Edmonton Oilers get their first win of the playoffs this year, as it's an unlikely hero cueing the first playoff La Bamba. But just how surprising was it? We have all that and much more on today's episode of Locked On Oilers.
You're Locked On Oilers, your daily podcast on the Edmonton Oilers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome back to Locked On Oilers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I am your host and former Oilers game day producer, Brett Holden. As mentioned on today's episode, we are going through that massive Game 2 victory for the Edmonton Oilers as they even up the series heading into Hollywood. But it was a pretty surprising player getting the game winner. But was it that surprising? We will talk about Klim Kostin's season as well, and just why this might be a good sign for the Edmonton Oilers. That will be coming up in our second period of today's episode. And to wrap up, as we always do after every Edmonton Oilers game, the good, the bad, and the ugly from Game 2 against the LA Kings. Thank you so much for making Locked On Oilers your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you find your podcast. Alrighty, let's get into Game 2 of the Edmonton Oilers and the Los Angeles Kings, as it started very similar to how it started in Game 1. The Oilers get the first two goals of the game, and none other than Derek Ryan getting the scoring started for the Oilers. And then, of course, Leon Draisaitl with already his third goal of the playoffs. And then it got a little dicey for the Oilers. But it wasn't until the second period where it got dicey for the Oilers, as the Edmonton Oilers absolutely dominated the first period. They did not allow a single shot on goal for the first 18 minutes of the game. Stuart Skinner did not face his first registered shot until the 18-minute mark of the first period. We talked about even earlier on Wednesday of how important it is and how we've seen the Edmonton Oilers evolve in the way of how difficult they allow shots towards the net, towards Stuart Skinner. And we saw that again tonight for the Oilers. 3 shots in the first period for the LA Kings, and then in the second and third, 11 shots each, and Stuart Skinner would stop each of those 11 in the third period, as the Oilers would go on to win, and Stuart Skinner gets his first NHL playoff win, the first goaltender to do so, the first rookie goaltender to get his first playoff win since none other than Grant Fuhr. As Jay Woodcroft said, if you're in the same sentence as Grant Fuhr, you're probably doing something right. But the Edmonton Oilers weren't doing a lot right in the second period, and Stuart Skinner would also agree that he did not do right in the second period. The Oilers would allow 2 goals in the second, and once again, just like in the first game, blow a 2-goal lead. Now, the difference between Game 1 and Game 2 is that in Game 1, the Oilers blew 2 2-goal leads. In Game 2, the Edmonton Oilers only blew 1, and they would come back to win. But that's still not a theme you want continued here if you are the Edmonton Oilers. The Edmonton Oilers, so far this year, are the only team in the playoffs so far to not win the game when they scored first. In all 12 of the first 3 days of the NHL playoffs, only one team has lost, and they have gone 11, in the first 12 games, the record for the team who scores first is 11-1, and the one is the Oilers from Game 1. However, the Edmonton Oilers are able to get into the win column in there and get the split of the series heading back to Hollywood. Now, Connor McDavid getting his first point of the playoffs. He gets an assist on one of the goals as well. And Klim Kostin getting the game when I can't believe we're all just now getting to Klim Kostin as Klim the Dream Kostin. None other than Klim Kostin getting the game-winning goal for the Edmonton Oilers, and he was great. He's been great since the first game, and in this game as well, he really imposed himself. We'll talk more about Klim Kostin as well, but this goes for the entire bottom six for the Oilers. As Zach Hyman even said in his post-game interview, you guys can't forget about Derek Ryan scoring the first goal of the game for the Oilers and getting the Oilers going in the first period. It is going through player number 1 to player number 11 in the forwards and top pairing to the bottom pairing for the Oilers on defense. And that is how you win games. That is not just games. That is how you win games in the playoffs. And the Edmonton Oilers were rewarded for it. Now, I want to mention the Stuart Skinner second period as well, as a couple of those, actually both of the LA Kings goals came on a soft stance, I guess, on the post for Stuart Skinner, as both were bounced in off the basically skate or post into the net. And after the game, I find this very interesting with Stuart Skinner, but he said it after the game 1 when the Oilers lost and he got his first playoff loss, and he said, I'm happy we lost. Not I'm happy, but I'm happy that I got the loss because now I know what it feels like to lose in the playoffs. Tonight, after he allowed that second goal to the Los Angeles Kings, Stuart Skinner would come out in the interview and go, I'm happy you scored it because now I know what to do. The mindset is absolutely unbelievable for Stuart Skinner. For the Edmonton Oilers to have a goaltender who sits there and goes, good, try to score it again. Do it again. See what happens. It's probably not going to happen. That mindset goes from not only the goaltender, but to the defenseman, to the forwards, to the best player on the ice, to the best player in the world, to, well, maybe more of a role guy. But that mindset goes from back to front, and that translates. And you could really feel it around the Edmonton Oilers today as well. I meant to mention it earlier on Wednesday's episode as well. But the Edmonton Oilers around the locker room heading into game 2 was pretty easy going. Jay Woodcroft joked with Tom Gazzola about his perm, talking about, I can't even look at you, Tom. Everybody's laughing, blah, blah, blah. Everybody was having a good time in the Edmonton Oilers locker room. It was loose. And that translates to the game. That translates to the third period. The Edmonton Oilers did not relent in the third period, despite the fact that they were, well, on the potential tip of their season. But they came out hard in the third period and win game 2 as we head to Los Angeles. I almost said Calgary, but we're not going there anytime soon. We head off to Los Angeles on Friday night as the Edmonton Oilers take on the Kings for game 3, 8 o'clock puck drop at Crypto.com Arena. Now, when we head into game 3, will we have another unsung hero win the game? Maybe, but it could also be Klim Kostin again. But why? We will talk about the heroics of Klim Kostin and why he might not be done in the series in just a second. But first, today's episode is brought to you by Built Bar. Something exciting is coming to Build.com on April 22nd. Now, I don't have all the details yet, but the excitement is real. And it's something you don't want to miss. If you know how Built works, they have the most incredible protein bars in the world, and they do the most amazing flavor drops with unreal flavors in limited quantity. So mark your calendars and head to built.com on Saturday, April 22nd to be one of the first to discover what all the hype is about. I can't wait to see what the new flavor is. Make sure you use promo code LOCKEDON15 and you'll get 15% off your order. Alrighty, I want to talk about Klim Kostin for a second. As Elliot Friedman said on the post-game panel on Sportsnet, he sat there and said, Matthias Ekholm, nobody will disagree, is Ken Holland's best trait. But his second best? Klim Kostin for Dmitry Samorukov. Klim Kostin goes on to score the game-winning goal, and the guy that all of Edmonton fell in love with earlier this year proved why they should have loved him. Now, this might be the start of a very important trend for the Edmonton Oilers and Klim Kostin. Now, Klim Kostin said about his goal tonight, I was actually looking for Leo. Jay Woodcroft said that Klim Kostin has a very, 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 very good shot. Klim Kostin in the first two games has played 9 minutes and 17 seconds in game 1 and 7 minutes and 42 seconds in game 2. Hasn't had a lot of time on ice. Now, as Jay Woodcroft also mentioned after game 1, a guy like him who isn't on the penalty kill, isn't on the power play, and when you get into weird special teams track meets, especially as the Oilers did in the second period, he's not going to play much. But when he is on the ice, he has caused absolute havoc. 10 hits in the first two games. In between the first two games, he has 5 each, even. The game-winning goal tonight for the Edmonton Oilers. But why is this important? Because in 57 games this year, I almost said so far, but the season's over. In 57 regular season games, 11 goals, 10 assists, 21 points for number 21 himself. However, 4 of those 11 goals came in 3 games, in a 3-game stretch, from January 11th to January 14th. Then, from December 30th to December 31st, Klim Kostin scored 3 goals in 2 games. 7 of those 11 goals were scored in a span of 5 games for Klim Kostin. If the Edmonton Oilers, and Klim Kostin specifically, if Klim Kostin is able to continue the way he has played this entire series, bumping bodies, getting into dirty areas, and the thing that's not statistically really kept up unless you force a turnover is how many broken up passes you force. Now, how many times did you hear tonight when Klim Kostin was on the ice? When Klim Kostin breaks up that pass, Kostin's stick gets into the lane, Kostin knows where to be all the time. He is a very, very, very smart hockey player. When you watch him, if you haven't yet, go and find the post-game interview with Leon Draisaitl and Klim Kostin from Game 2. And please don't tell me that he is not happy to be in this city. He even said he doesn't even have words if we're playing in front of this city. And this is why I love the Edmonton Oilers press room so much. Because all of the fans were able to stand there as they did during last year's playoff run and sit there and give him the flowers he deserves. This was his first playoff goal for a guy who was drafted in 2017 and was around the St. Louis Blues when they went to the Stanley Cup final. He was a first-round pick in 2017, so he needed to be kind of around at some point. Now, most likely, I was not around the Blues organization at the time. I assume that he was one of those black aces who would come up and basically practice with the team during the playoffs. So he didn't get into any games. Game 1 was his first playoff game, and Game 2, he gets his first playoff goal. This is a guy, every time he steps out on the ice, whether it's for 30 seconds, whether it's for 7 minutes and 42 seconds of a 60-minute game, it doesn't matter. Everything Klim Kostin has got, he will put out on the ice, shift in, shift out, game in, game out. You know that is a man who is willing to put his blood, sweat, and tears for everything. We damn near saw it tonight. But why is this all important as well? There's more to this as well. The Edmonton Oilers are getting contributions from their bottom six. We all know the 33 points from Connor McDavid and 32 for Leon Draisaitl last year in the playoffs. But that is relatively concerning sometimes when you sit there and go, who else is getting points? For the Edmonton Oilers in the playoffs so far this year, Leon Draisaitl has scored 3 of the Edmonton Oilers' 7. The other goal scorers, Derek Ryan, Vander Kane, Evan Bouchard, and Klim Kostin. The Edmonton Oilers are getting scoring from more guys. And I didn't even mention Connor freaking McDavid. Just wait until Connor McDavid gets on the score sheet. Because I have a pretty strong feeling that in Game 3 in Los Angeles on Friday, I don't think Connor McDavid's going to score 1 goal. I don't know if he's even going to score 2 goals. He might just score 3. Maybe he'll just get 7 points. I don't know. But that is the scary thing. The fact that Connor McDavid is just getting into, or hardly even getting into this series, getting an assist in the game. Klim Kostin and Derek Ryan, opening goal for Ryan, game winner for Kostin. We all love the who's the Fernando Pisani debate. 21. Do something for me. Alrighty, let's wrap up today's episode with the good, the bad, and the ugly from Game 2 for the Edmonton Oilers. But first, today's episode is brought to you by eBay Motors. For a championship team, it's all about making sure every player is a perfect fit. It's the same when it comes to your vehicle. Every part needs to fit just right. So the next time you need parts and accessories, head to eBay Motors. With eBay Guaranteed Fit, you can be sure every part you need fits right the first time around. Just add your ride to My Garage and look for the green check to know the part will fit, or your money back. Because just like in sports, confidence is the name of the game when you shop on eBay Motors. And with over 122 million parts to choose from, you'll be back in the game in no time. After all, it's easy to bring home a win when the right parts are guaranteed. Get the right parts, the right fit, and the right prices on ebaymotors.com. Let's ride. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. Alrighty, let's wrap up today's post-game edition of today's episode with the good, the bad, and the ugly from Game 2 against the Los Angeles Kings. And we'll start off with the good. And the good was actually a buzzword used by Jay Woodcroft after tonight's game, or after Wednesday's game against the LA Kings. It's resiliency. Yes, the Edmonton Oilers were up and did blow a lead, but heading into that third period, in that second intermission, all of the momentum in the world was on LA's side. The Edmonton Oilers came out in the third period and did not let that deter them. Vander Kane getting the eventual empty net goal. Klim Kostin, as mentioned, getting the game winner. And the Edmonton Oilers shutting down the offense of the LA Kings once again. I almost said Phoenix Copley. Jonas Korpisalo almost did not get to the bench at any point in the third period for the empty net, for the extra attacker. He didn't get to the bench until the minute 15 mark, minute 30 mark. The Edmonton Oilers were drawing pressure, making sure it wasn't easy on the LA Kings, and that is how you win hockey games. And you, not even to mention the fantastic pass from Leon Draisaitl to find Evander Kane as well. Great resiliency for the Edmonton Oilers and the ability to show that despite the fact that all the waves may be going against your beach here, but sometimes you can still swim. So the good is resiliency. The bad for the Oilers, well, the second period. We can say the second period. We can also kind of say Stuart Skinner's second period. I was also going to put just post work as well, because the Edmonton Oilers didn't keep up what they did in the second period for against the LA Kings. But that would be very difficult. They only allowed 3 goals in 20 minutes against the Kings in the first period. Didn't allow the first shot until the 18-minute mark. It was a good period for the Oilers, but even just being half as good for the back half of the period, it seems like the Edmonton Oilers are having a little bit of the same issues from last year and not playing a full 60 minutes. In this game, it was the second period. Now, I also mentioned the post play for Stuart Skinner. I mentioned as well earlier on in today's episode, as he said, I'm happy he scored that goal because now I know what to do. Although Oilers fans weren't very happy that that puck went in, I was in the moss pit tonight during the first and second period, and people around us were not very happy. They were not very happy. Both goals were relatively weak. A lot of people around us going, oh, this guy, Stuart Skinner, he's just not ready, just not ready. They were not great goals. But even Skinner said on the second goal, it was a bit of a lucky bounce. But then he would go on to say, I bit on his forehand, he went backhand, and it went in. He knows that there's an issue. He knows now, like he said, what to do when that next opportunity comes. And we might see the LA Kings try a couple of wraparounds and pucks towards the post to see if they can try and get one of those free jam-ins as well. The big question for Stuart Skinner and the Oilers will be is if he learned. So the bad being the second period, the post play, and a lot of other things as well, just around the second period. And the ugly. As I mentioned, I was in the moss pit. I was at my other job, so I was doing some work at the moss pit today. And I mentioned a little bit of a theme. Now, this ugly has nothing to do with the Edmonton Oilers in general. It has to do with Edmonton Oilers fans. And we all know the hate that Oilers fans are getting right now for littering the ice in overtime after the referees blew the call on Vinny Desharnais, and Oilers fans are upset and people go, how could they ever do this? As if the Oilers fans didn't literally do that when the Oilers were absolute trash in 2012 and Nail Yakupov would go on to win actually he tied the game and then slid down the ice. But before that, we all know the scenes of the Edmonton Oilers fans tossing pizza boxes and beer cans all out on the ice after Sam Gagner's goal was called off. So I'm not surprised by that. But what I am surprised by is people throwing beer cans into the crowd. Hey, Oilers fans, let's stop that. Are you really willing to keep our the way the league and other people see Oilers fans as just people who like to throw stuff at people, in people's heads, with alloy cans? What are we doing? Just because you're drinking doesn't mean you get to act stupid. So the ugly beer can throwings at Moss Pit and just throwing stuff in general. Stop. Grow up. What are we doing here? Like, I don't know. It's really disappointing to see. I know a lot of young people are going to be going, oh, look at this old guy yelling at the cloud. Grow up. Please. Enjoy the playoffs responsibly and enjoy the Edmonton Oilers looking to win the second game of the series. Well, their second game of the series, as this series now becomes a best of 5 as the series heads to Hollywood on Friday. What's a better script than that? Alrighty, 8 p.m. puck drop on Friday at the Crypto.com Arena, and I cannot wait. Hopefully at the end of that one, we can all play La Bamba, baby.